When we spend our lives chasing butterflies, they will fly away. But if we spend our lives mending a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. Hello and welcome to the Patience to Prosperity podcast, where we learn how to act in opposition of our limiting beliefs in order to reach our fullest potential. Today will be centered around the concept of authenticity. The whole idea of authenticity really just has to do with acting in the way that is most natural to your true self. And it's something that I think a lot of people actually tend to lack in this lifetime, especially in the world full of social media and constant feeling the need to compare yourself to other people. Because, like I'll get into later in this episode, comparison is really just the thief of joy, and it's what takes us away from being able to truly embody our own true selves. So, as this season has a lot to do with planting the seed, and it has a very naturistic theme, I really wanted to dive into how the term organic and authentic coincide. So when we think of something that's organic, it's in its true state. It's completely raw. There's no preservatives or chemicals to make it last longer than it was originally intended to. When we choose organic products, our body reacts better to them because they came exactly where they were intended to. They came right from the ground, and nothing was added to them to turn them into something that they were not meant to be. A strawberry is not meant to last the time that it does now because of all the GMOs that they add to them. So I just think that the term organic has a lot in common with the term authentic, because when we're authentic, we're unleashing the truest, rawest versions of ourselves without letting other people's perceptions and projections of their own insecurities change our trajectories of our own paths and journeys. And this is something that I think needs to be talked about more in the whole healing world, and it's something that often gets overlooked in the sense that you kind of just embody it while you heal and while you're on this growth journey. But I think it's one of the most pivotal points to growth, because when we're not in our authentic state, everything that we do is kind of for show, and we never get any self-fulfillment. But what we don't realize is that the less authentic we are, the less that people actually like us. Because when you're trying to be someone that you're not, people can see completely through that. So we're not getting any self-fulfillment from that, because we know deep down, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we know that we're not acting in a sense that feels real to us, that feels authentic to us. And people can pick up on that vibration. So when we are acting in our most authentic state, and we're being as intense and passionate about things that we love and that light a fire in us, the people who stick around are the ones that we actually align with. So in order to create real connections with people, we have to work to be our most authentic selves. And this is something that's really hard when we're not used to it. When we've spent most of our lives trying to just put ourselves in a box and make everyone else like us because we're scared of what other people think, and our people-pleasing tendencies kind of take over, it's really hard to even understand who we are and to even be able to act on our most authentic selves, because we don't really know what that looks like yet. We have to remind ourselves that there's no time limit on our growth, and there's nothing in our lives that are being measured in terms of how much time it's taking us to get there. So if it takes you years to truly find the things that light a fire inside of you, then it's going to take years to do that. But the way that I try to look at it is, when we don't truly know who we are in the beginning and we're on this journey of trying to heal from our past and grow as a person, but we need to actually find ourselves first, it's something that we should be looking at in such a positive light instead of having such a negative connotation to it, because this is a time for rebirth. We as humans have the ability to rebirth ourselves as many times as we want. And I think that's so beautiful, because we can constantly change the things that really add value to our lives. When we're living authentically, we're also allowing others to be themselves as well, which is such a beautiful thing that us humans are able to do. It really just brings humanity together, and it creates community and like this divine alignment between people, and I just think it's so powerful. So understanding that limiting yourself and trying to put yourself in a box is never going to help you get to where you're supposed to be, because where you're supposed to be is going to cost you your old life. It's going to cost you the person that you no longer align with. And I think when we're not living authentically, you can feel it. You know that something is uncomfortable, whether you know how to pinpoint it or not. You know that something's off. And the second that you realize who you are and what you value and the people that you want to surround yourself in your life, everything else is going to fall into place. You just have to allow yourself the time to get there and be patient with your journey, which is a big reason why I named this podcast Patience to Prosperity. Because if we allow ourselves time and just let ourselves go through things without putting labels on ourselves and time limits and restrictions, then we will reach prosperity. We will get to where we want to be. And I promise you that you'll get to a place that's even better than what you could have imagined. When you are living in your true self, and you're doing things that light you up, and you know what makes you happy and what fills you up rather than drains you, you have things to fall back on now. So when you're in a state where life is taking its turns and you feel like you're at a loss of hope, maybe you're at a low point, you know what to do to pick yourself back up and to make yourself feel better. And you know exactly what steps you need to take in order to get back to that state where you're content and you're happy and life doesn't feel so heavy anymore. And I know that's really hard to hear in the beginning when you're not really sure exactly how to get to that point yet. But I promise it is possible, and I'm living proof for that. Going back to the idea of how organic coincides with authentic, we talked a little bit about how fruit in its natural state even tastes better than fruit that is not organic and that is full of preservatives. So people will come into your life that are meant to be in your life when you are acting in your most authentic being. Which brings me to my next point about comparison that I mentioned earlier in today's episode. Comparison kills authenticity completely. When you are caring so much about what other people think about you, you're not living for you. You're living for other people. And I think it's so important to think of ourselves as plants, because humans, the way that we grow is so similar to how plants grow. And that's something that really helped me birth this season of planting the seed, because it's all about growth. The season is all about growth and the things that you go through in your growth journey, and the things to be aware of and take notice to, and just be able to internalize. So, thinking of ourselves as a plant, every plant requires different amounts of sunlight and water to grow. Everyone's journey looks different. I could sit here on this mic and tell you exactly every single thing that I did day to day to get to where I am now, and to get myself out of a dark place that I could no longer stand to be in. But obviously, even if you're in a dark place, we might have been going through different things. So in order to get out of that, it might take different amounts of effort to get to where you want to be. And that's completely okay. We have to accept that everyone's journey is different. And by comparing ourselves to others, we're only making it 10 times harder for us to heal. And in terms of the whole beauty standard that has taken over society and made a lot of women feel like they have to live up to these standards that are just completely impossible to even uphold. Understanding that one's beauty does not take away from your own. Every single flower looks different, yet we deem them all as beautiful. So your uniqueness and you being your authentic self is what makes you so beautiful, and that's what attracts people to you. It acts as a literal magnet that people are going to be driven towards. And when we compare ourselves to other people, it just completely robs us of being able to live authentically. We should only be comparing ourselves to past versions of ourselves, because when we do this, it kind of just puts into perspective how much growth we've done. And it can be very reassuring, because I know that's something that so many people are experiencing, whether they even know it or not. Everyone's constantly comparing themselves to others, or they're just so infatuated with how they look, because in today's society, it's almost as if your worth is defined by your attractiveness. And when we're caring what other people think about us, that's when we're going to have more problems with seeing ourselves in a way where we deem ourselves beautiful and we accept ourselves as we are, because we're caring about what others think. And like I said before, that means that we're not living for ourselves, we're living for others. So with comparison, I see a trend of copying a lot in today's world. You know, like being on a college campus, I see every single time I leave my building that if I pass 10 girls, at least 8 of them are wearing outfits that look just like the other, because they feel like they have to fit this specific mold and look this certain way and dress this certain way in order to be accepted in their own communities. And for that reason, people tend to copy what other people wear and how they do their hair and how they do their makeup and how they show up in this world, which can also trickle into your own personalities, which has a lot to do with how authentic you're being. Because if you're trying to copy someone else's sense of humor or someone else's way of getting others' attention, you're completely undermining your own unique way of doing those things, which is going to lead to less authentic connections in your life, like I've mentioned before. So understanding that it's completely okay to take inspiration from others, but we have to know the difference between taking inspiration and copying completely. Because when we take inspiration, we're able to first understand that the things that we're inspired from are coming from our authentic selves. They're coming from deep within our spirit, in a place that is lighting us up, and it brings joy to us in some way. Whether it be you going on Pinterest and seeing an outfit that someone else was wearing and taking inspiration from that and pulling pieces from your closet that are similar to it. But you're not completely scavenging through the internet for that exact top that they're wearing, those exact jeans that they're wearing. You know what I mean? Like, you're making it your own still. So when we're copying people, I feel like it tends to come from a state where we like the way that they're showing up in the world, and we like the way that they're being authentic, and rather than translating that into, okay, let me be my most authentic self now, let me take inspiration from this and turn it into something that feels true to me, we're literally copying, pasting from that person because we're trying to get that same validation that we're giving to them subconsciously, if that makes any sense. It's kind of just like putting people on a pedestal and praising them for the things that they have that we like or are attracted to or admire. Because when we take inspiration, we're building off already born ideas and we're just transforming them further through our own self-expression. So a way that I really found my own style was probably a little bit through Pinterest, like just going through Pinterest and seeing outfits, pinning things that I thought were unique and cool and felt true to me. I like color a lot. It makes me happy. It brings a lot of joy to me. So I've learned to embody that through the way that I dress. And through thrifting was the way that I actually found what my true style was. Because you just have endless racks full of random clothes. Some from people's grandmothers, some from teenagers that were cleaning out their closets, like random clothes. I feel like thrifting allowed me to be so creative in the sense that I was able to look at a top and get a whole vision from it and pair it with things that I knew already existed in my closet and put it together in a way that felt so authentic to me, and I felt more comfortable in what I was wearing than I ever have in my life once I started thrifting. And this might be a little bit off topic, but I just thought that it had a lot to do with the whole comparison thing, because once I found thrifting, I stopped wearing things that I was just wearing because everyone else was, you know? And I think it took a minute for me to like really sit in the uncomfortability of putting myself out there like that. But it also came so easy because it felt so right. Like, it just felt like me. I knew that when I was putting on these things, I was dressing for myself. I wasn't dressing for others. And that was so transformative for me, because now I only pick out funkier patterns and more bright colors, and I'm just never picking out an outfit in the morning with the thought in the back of my head that someone else is not going to like it. So, moral of the story, we have to become clear with the things that we're mirroring and ask ourselves if it actually feels true to us, or if we're just craving external validation for some reason and living more in our ego than we are in our actual spirit. And that's something that I'm going to do a whole episode on, so I'm not going to talk too much on that. But just know that when we're feeding into our ego, we're never living in our authentic selves, because our ego wants validation from others. It doesn't feel comfortable with being who we truly are, because that means that some people are not going to like us. But one of the biggest things for me when realizing that I was living more in my ego than I was in my spirit was when I would get into this headspace where I would think, oh, like, other people don't like me, so maybe if I did this, like, people would like me more. And it's kind of like coming from those people-pleasing tendencies that can uprise easily when you grow up needing to seek validation for whatever reason. And one day it just clicked for me, and I realized, why do I actually care what these people think of me if I don't even like them? If I don't align with them in any way, I don't see them in my future at all, and they bring absolutely no abundance to my life whatsoever. Why do I actually care what they think about me? It's easier said than done to just say, oh, you shouldn't care what other people think about you. I think to some degree, no matter how much you work on it, a part of you is always going to care a little bit what others think about you. I like to look at it in the way that I would rather others respect me and just respect my existence rather than be so complacent on someone liking me. Like, I don't waste my energy anymore wishing that someone liked me for who I was. I will not spend another second ever putting myself down because I was too much for someone else. Because if you're too much for someone, then you'll find someone who you're completely enough for. Just understanding that you're inherently worthy. You were born worthy, and there's nothing that you have to do to be worthy in this lifetime. That's not something you're ever going to have to work towards. And when you really understand that and you become clear with that and you believe it, it's going to bring you so much reassurance, because it's going to help you to actually live for yourself and not for others. Which brings me to my last topic that I want to talk about today, which translates back to this naturistic theme. So the concept of cutting off dead leaves and releasing what no longer serves us is going to set us free. Use dead leaves to symbolize whatever aligns with you. So maybe that's people that you no longer align with, or places that no longer fill your cup up anymore. It can be literally anything, but when we realize that when we cut off dead leaves on a plant, it's not out of ill intent. We once loved and cherished that leaf because it held nutrients that the plant once needed to survive and to grow and blossom into something even more divine. But as the plant grew, it no longer needed that leaf anymore. That leaf didn't hold the nutrients that it now needs in its present state, because it's much bigger now and it needs other nutrients to grow. And by leaving that leaf be on that plant dead, instead of cutting it off, it could actually start to spread disease to your newly formed leaves. So taking this as you will, just understanding that keeping old people around that no longer align with you, for example, it's only going to hurt the relationships that you're trying to make with people that align with you more in your life. It's only going to take more of your energy. And I think it's really important to just ask yourself, what fills me up and what drains me? Look at all the relationships that you have and maybe think about the things that you like about those relationships and maybe the things that completely drain you from those. Because I'm telling you here, people are not meant to be in your life if you leave from hanging out with them, from spending time with them, and you feel drained. Yes, everyone has a social battery, don't get me wrong, but you should feel like you just drank a coffee after you hung out with one of your friends. You should feel like you just got more energy from that and more life from that. You should not be feeling like it's draining your energy and like you need to sleep it off after you go and hang out with someone. So going back to this concept of dead leaves and this plant growing, we also have to note that we don't have funerals for dead leaves. We simply let them be what they once were. So when someone no longer aligns with us anymore, we don't have to explain to them why they no longer align with us. We don't have to explain to them why they don't fit in our lives anymore. We don't owe anyone an explanation for how we're living our lives. So let's just accept that all of your best memories with this person are now behind you. And instead of looking at that as something that is sad and something that we should be grieving, which, don't get me wrong, you can for sure grieve an old relationship, and grieving people that are still alive is real and it happens, and that's completely okay, and you should let yourself go through those motions. But don't let yourself stay in that headspace for too long, because you know what is meant for you. And if you know that someone is no longer meant to be in your life, it is not worth keeping them around just because they're familiar and you're comfortable with them, because that's not going to lead to any growth for either one of you. You're only doing a disservice to yourself and to them by keeping them along. So it's so important to find gratitude for what these people once did serve at a time where we did need them, because maybe they're not bringing things into our lives now that necessarily bring any abundance into our lives, but at one point we did need them for some reason. And let's just work to be grateful that they were there at one point, rather than regret the time that we spent with them and the energy that we put into that friendship, because the friendships that will foster after them could not have been possible if we didn't have those people in our lives first, because they taught us either what we value or what we really don't value in a friendship. And that helps us kind of weave through other people when they come into our lives, and it helps us look for who's authentic and who's not. So just understanding that you don't need to stick around with someone else just because they were once a part of your life, and maybe they were a part of your life for a really long time, and you're using that as a justification for why you should keep sticking along with them. Maybe they were in your life for 10 years, but guess what? You're not the same person you were 10 years ago. You're not the same person you were when you woke up this morning. We're constantly changing. We're constantly experiencing new things that are changing our realities. And it is okay to leave these people behind if they no longer are necessary for our growth. So that's all that I'm going to talk about today. I really appreciated you sticking along for this episode. And if you made it all the way to the end, I hope that you come back and that you subscribe to this podcast to listen to more concepts like this. Just understand that you're gonna get to where you're meant to be by being your most authentic self. Don't ever try to be someone else. Only try to find yourself deeper. That's the only thing that you're meant here to do. You know, like I always think about the concept of we're human beings, not human doings. We're not meant to be on this earth to just run ourselves wild until we burn and crash. We're meant to literally just be here, be still, experience, meet new people, learn who we are and what makes us happy, and live in our true alignment. So I hope you got something from this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share with someone else that could also get something from this. I'm so excited for what this podcast is already bringing, and I can't wait to just continuously grow with each and every one of you who's listening, because I really want to make this a space where we're growing together. And I'm talking about the things that are necessary for growth and how to actually put them into place. So feel free to shoot me a DM whenever, talk about anything. Literally open up yourselves in whatever way that you feel comfortable, because it also helps me get inspiration from the things that you may be struggling with or that you may find fulfillment in, because then I can make an episode on it and I can really tackle the whole idea to help us both. So yeah, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.